Are you looking for new ways to play with your child that are inexpensive? Perhaps you have some classic games in your house already, but didn't realize that you could use that with your preschooler or even older kids. Well, today's video is going to show you how one classic game can have your child working on all sorts of developmental skills. Hello mamas, welcome back to the Playapy YouTube channel. I am Amy, pediatric occupational therapist and founder of Playapy, and I'm here to provide you with some playful solutions and powerful results. Today I want to tell you about something that you may have in your home. I know I do, and it is actually a family heirloom. Now, you may be thinking, why would you let a child play with a family heirloom? Well, it is actually meant for play, and mostly it's meant for play with adults, but that doesn't mean you can stop preschoolers from having fun with it and learning tons of skills. So let's talk about it. Today, we're going to show you how to play dominoes with preschoolers. Okay, everyone, so this is the heirloom that I was talking about. These are actually the dominoes that were my grandfather's on my mother's side, and they were gifted to me when he passed away, and I treasure them. So to be honest, I don't use these exact ones with my little patients, but that's okay. They would really stand up the test of time anyway. I just don't want them to get lost. But I do have a set that I got at a dollar store, and I also have a set that I got at like a family store for about $5 that I use a little bit more often because they have different colors. So we're going to use those today to describe how we can play with them. So let's get started. If you're not familiar with dominoes, they come often in a set of 28 tiles. The tiles are two-sided with one side blank, and then the other side has two sides as well. It's separated with the left and right side with between 0 to 6 dots on each side. Now, we are not going to necessarily talk about how to play dominoes by rules. That is not the purpose of this video. What I want to show you is how you can use this toy as a tool, and how it can be used to help with various skills. And eventually you can play dominoes with a preschooler. But I want to show you some nice ways for you to introduce some concepts and skills to them using something that's fun and that you already have in your house. One of the first things I do with children who are not yet at the level where they are drawing is to have them work on imitating drawing simple dots. And this is a fun way for them to have some meaning involved in the activity. What I do is I'll use something as simple as a blank piece of paper or something like a dry erase board like this, and I will divide it in half. So I'm going to take my marker and just draw a line down the middle. Now this can be either vertical or horizontal. And what you want them to understand is that the domino is the same as the board. So we want to copy what we see on each side. So you want to start out with something simple like just 0 to 1 dots and see if they can do that. So we're going to count and say, oh, how many dots do we have here? 1 dot. And then we're going to draw 1 dot on the board. The other side of the board, we're going to draw the other dot. Another thing that you can do is turn this board into multiple dominoes. So to save paper or time, you might want to just draw across and then create several dominoes. So now we can do 4 dominoes going vertically. So each time you pick a new one out, you're going to do the same thing like I said before. You're going to match up the dots according to how many there are. Now, you don't have to be so precise in terms of location of the dot, but just the amount of the dots. So this one has 2 on top and 1 on the bottom. So we're going to put 2 dots and 1 on the bottom. This activity gives you several opportunities to master this type of skill. So your board will end up finishing looking like the different tiles that you've selected. Now again, if you feel like this is too challenging for a child, you can use many of the tiles that have just a few dots. But if it is something that they can do fairly easily. Then you want to move more to the ones that have more dots. So you might have this one that has 2 and 5 dots, right? So why am I doing this activity? Well, there are some kids who are not really ready yet to draw shapes, but they may already know how to do something like scribble. So this, just drawing a dot or a little circle and coloring it in, is a nice transitional activity for them that you can work on. It also helps you to work on their pencil grasp or their marker grasp like I am holding right now, and being able to hold on to a paper or a board. But it is a nice different activity that they can do to work on their visual motor skills. You may be familiar with another video that I did called the dice game visual motor, and you can also use that same concept here. If you wanted to, you could just roll a dice and then you can see how many dots you had and fill in your board as if these were dots instead of dominoes. So that's just another idea that you can try as well. Another activity that you can do if you have multiple sets of dominoes, or perhaps if you're doing a session with a child, if you're a therapist and you're working with them on screen and you have a set and they have a set, you can just show them the domino and see if they can find the matching one. So that's one way of playing with them. Another activity that you can have them work on is matching skills. So this is more of a cognitive skill or visual perceptual skill. You want to see if they can find the matching number of dots on the opposite side of the tile. So for example, this tile has 4 dots and 1, and this one has 2 dots and 1. So you want to see if they can realize that they have a number 1 that matches together with the other. This is definitely a prerequisite to learn how to play dominoes. But what you want to think about is, if this is too challenging for them to use with all the tiles, which probably it is, you want to limit it down to just a few tiles. So maybe you give them a choice of 3, and then they have to find the one that matches much easier that way. If that is too easy, then you can increase it up to maybe 6 or more. But showing them all the dominoes might be a little bit too hard for them. Once you know that your child can match up the numbers fairly well, you can then try to introduce the concept of actually connecting the dominoes like you would in a traditional game. If you're not familiar with the traditional way to play with dominoes, you would have a tile that's placed down, and then the next person whose turn it is would have to place a tile that has a matching end to either, for example, this tile would be 4 on one end or 5 on the other. So if you're taking turns, it's a nice way for you to show how to connect these different tiles so that they are making a line. As you can imagine, just counting the dots is a great activity for them to work on as well. It is always important to work on counting skills with your preschooler. And some dominoes may also have, for example, in this set, there's different colors. So you can also work on colors as well. One of the things that I want you to remember not to forget is towards the end of your activity that just putting away the tiles can be a nice fine motor activity. So you want to make sure that the child has maybe the container on one side of the body and the pieces on another, and that they're using their fingertips to pick up the tile and place them nicely in rows. Now, another thing you can work on if you have a child that isn't used to holding things, you want to have them hold the container. You might want to even have them hold it in their hands depending on the size of the container, and then that way they can place them nicely inside. Doing something like putting away tiles in an orderly fashion is something that parents often don't even think about would be a great skill to work on, but it really truly is, and it's something that I incorporate almost in every session that I do, is children putting away toys as well as playing with them. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tip on how to use dominoes with preschoolers. It is an activity that I have had a lot of success with. Children seem to really like it, and it is so effective, especially for those kids who don't know how to draw yet. So give it a try and see if it works out for you. If you like this video, please let me know. You can subscribe to this channel, like the video down below, And also check out the description where I'll include the links for some other videos that may be helpful to you, including that dice game that I talked about. Until the next video, I hope you have a playful day.